Everything we thought we knew about 3I/ATLAS just changed. The careful calculations, the projected timelines, the Halloween arrival date that gave us weeks to prepare, all of it is wrong. September 23rd, 6:23 a.m. NASA's Deep Space Network detected something that made mission controllers drop their coffee and stare at screens in disbelief. 3I/ATLAS had accelerated again. Not the gentle course corrections we'd grown accustomed to, but a massive velocity increase that shattered every prediction about when this thing would reach Earth. The new arrival date isn't Halloween. It isn't even October. But how much sooner? And why now, after months of steady approach, did it suddenly decide that the original timeline wasn't fast enough anymore? For months, we'd been watching this object approach at a steady, predictable pace that gave scientists time to study it and governments time to prepare responses. That measured approach had suggested either scientific curiosity or careful reconnaissance, intelligence taking its time to observe and analyze before making contact. Now everything feels different. The sudden acceleration suggests urgency, maybe impatience, possibly a response to something happening on Earth that we're not even aware of. The acceleration wasn't random. It wasn't a natural gravitational boost from Jupiter or some unexpected solar wind effect. The energy signatures detected during the speed increase matched the same impossible propulsion we'd seen before. Controlled, deliberate, and absolutely intentional. 3I/ATLAS chose to arrive early. But exactly how early, and what does it mean for humanity that our cosmic visitors are apparently in a hurry? The acceleration began at exactly 6:23:17 a.m. UTC and continued for 4 hours and 41 minutes. During that time, 3I/ATLAS increased its velocity by 12,000 kilometers per hour, enough speed to cross the entire United States in 20 minutes. To put that in perspective, our fastest spacecraft, the Parker Solar Probe, took years of gravitational assists and carefully planned maneuvers to reach its maximum velocity. 3I/ATLAS added more speed in a single morning than most of our rockets achieved during their entire operational lifetime. The energy output was beyond measurement. Radio telescopes around the world detected electromagnetic pulses from 3I/ATLAS that exceeded the power generation of entire nations. But unlike our crude rocket engines that blast exhaust in all directions and waste most of their energy as heat, this acceleration produced no visible exhaust plume, minimal thermal signatures, no detectable reaction mass. It was like watching physics textbooks rewrite themselves in real time. The energy conversion efficiency approaches theoretical limits, one propulsion engineer admitted, staring at the data. They're converting stored energy into kinetic acceleration with minimal waste signatures that our physics says should be impossible at this scale. It's not just advanced, it's operating on thermodynamic principles we haven't mastered yet. But the most disturbing aspect wasn't how much energy they used, it was how precisely they controlled it. The acceleration curve was mathematically perfect. No fluctuations, no efficiency losses, no course corrections needed to maintain trajectory. Like adjusting a rheostat on some cosmic velocity control system. Deep space tracking stations detected something else during the acceleration event that made everyone nervous. Synchronized energy spikes from the escort vessels. All 7 craft simultaneously increased power output during 3I/ATLAS's speed boost, suggesting coordinated operations across the entire fleet. They weren't just speeding up one vessel, they were accelerating an entire task force with perfect synchronization across millions of kilometers of space. The level of coordination required for such an operation indicated command and control capabilities that made our most advanced military systems look primitive. The acceleration ended as abruptly as it began. At 11:04 a.m., the energy signatures returned to baseline levels and 3I/ATLAS resumed its steady approach, but now moving fast enough to reach Earth weeks ahead of schedule. Mission planners immediately began recalculating trajectories and updating arrival predictions. The new timeline compressed everything, Preparation schedules, observation windows, diplomatic protocols, defense readiness, all of it suddenly operating on emergency timescales instead of the careful, measured pace they'd grown accustomed to. But perhaps most unnerving was the precision of the final velocity. 3I/ATLAS hadn't just randomly accelerated to get here faster. The speed increase was calculated to achieve a specific arrival time that mission planners are still trying to decode. When will it actually arrive? The answer sent shockwaves through classified briefing rooms around the world. The timing of the acceleration raises questions that keep intelligence analysts awake at night. For months, 3I/ATLAS had maintained steady approach velocity that suggested patience, careful observation, maybe even respect for giving Earth time to prepare for contact. Then something changed. Something made them decide that the original timeline was no longer acceptable. But what? The acceleration occurred just hours after several significant events that might have triggered the decision. On September 22nd, the James Webb Space Telescope published detailed spectroscopic analysis of 3I/ATLAS that revealed more about its composition and structure than ever before. Military radar installations had begun continuous tracking protocols. Several nations announced joint space monitoring initiatives. Had they been waiting to see how humanity would respond to their presence? Were they concerned about our growing ability to study and understand their technology? Did our increased attention make them decide to accelerate their timeline before we learned too much? Or was it something else entirely? Intelligence agencies analyzed global events from the 48 hours before the acceleration, looking for triggers that might have prompted the sudden change in approach strategy. Climate summit meetings discussing planetary defense against asteroid impacts, joint military exercises involving space-based assets, the European Space Agency's announcement of plans to launch interceptor probes for scientific study of the object. Maybe they weren't accelerating toward us, maybe they were accelerating away from something we'd started planning. Every defensive preparation we've made has been monitored by their reconnaissance capabilities, one strategic analyst observed. If they decided our response was shifting from scientific curiosity to potential threat assessment, that might explain the urgency to complete their mission before we developed countermeasures. But there's another possibility that's even more disturbing. Maybe the acceleration wasn't about responding to human activities at all. Maybe it was about timing their arrival to coincide with something else, something we're not aware of yet. October 12th isn't a random date. It's during the waning crescent phase, when nighttime visibility will be optimal with minimal lunar glare interfering with ground-based observations. Perfect timing for operations that require clear visual and electromagnetic observation windows. It's also the anniversary of several significant events in human space exploration history. Columbus Day in some cultures, the feast day of saints associated with travel and discovery in others. Symbolic timing that suggests they understand human cultural patterns and chose their arrival date accordingly. Or maybe they're not coming for us at all. Maybe October 12th represents optimal positioning for using Earth's gravity as a slingshot to somewhere else in the solar system, Mars, the asteroid belt, the outer planets where they could establish operations away from human observation. The troubling reality is that we don't know. After months of careful study and analysis, we still have no idea what 3I/ATLAS wants, what it's planning, or why it suddenly decided that arriving 3 weeks early was worth the enormous energy expenditure required for such dramatic acceleration. The calculations took mission planners 18 hours of non-stop work. Trajectory analysis, velocity measurements, orbital mechanics, all recalculated based on the new speed data. When the final numbers came back, emergency protocols activated in classified facilities around the world. 3I/ATLAS will reach Earth's orbital vicinity on October 12th at 2:47 p.m. UTC. Not Halloween, not even late October. 17 days from today. The precision is terrifying. Not approximately October 12th. Not sometime in mid-October. Exactly 2:47 in the afternoon, with accuracy that suggests the new timeline serves some specific operational requirement we can't understand, That's 17 days from now, 2.5 weeks to prepare for an encounter that we thought we had 2 months to understand. The moment NASA confirmed the new timeline, emergency protocols activated in classified facilities around the world. What had been careful, methodical preparation for a Halloween encounter suddenly became frantic crisis management for an arrival that was now just over 2 weeks away. Within hours, government schedules were thrown out the window. The measured pace of diplomatic consultation and scientific analysis was replaced by emergency sessions and round-the-clock briefings. Leaders who had been planning to address the situation when we have more information suddenly faced decisions that couldn't wait for additional study. Emergency sessions convened simultaneously in Washington, Moscow, Beijing, Brussels, and a dozen other capitals. Intelligence agencies that had been conducting routine monitoring suddenly found themselves managing humanity's first confirmed extraterrestrial contact on a timeline nobody was prepared for. Everything accelerated along with the object, admitted one emergency coordinator. Diplomatic protocols, military readiness, communication strategies, all of it suddenly operating on crisis timelines instead of the careful preparation schedules we'd established. NASA received emergency funding authorizations that dwarfed the agency's entire annual budget. Projects that had been scheduled for months of careful development were suddenly required to be operational within weeks. Space-based observation assets were redirected from scientific missions to continuous monitoring of the approaching object. Military commands worldwide shifted from routine monitoring to active defense postures. The luxury of studying potential responses was replaced by immediate implementation of whatever countermeasures were possible with existing technology. Strategic assets were moved to secure positions. Communication networks were hardened against potential interference. But the most significant change was psychological. For months, the October 30th timeline had felt distant enough to allow for measured responses and careful planning. 2.5 weeks felt like an emergency countdown that demanded immediate action, regardless of whether that action was adequate or effective. International cooperation reached unprecedented levels as the shortened timeline eliminated any possibility of independent national responses. Ancient rivalries were set aside as world leaders realized they faced a crisis that made traditional diplomatic protocols irrelevant. The United Nations Security Council established a permanent emergency session with rotating 24-hour coverage. NATO activated coordination protocols originally designed for nuclear warfare. The European Space Agency, Chinese National Space Administration, and Roscosmos began sharing classified capabilities that had been state secrets for decades. But cooperation couldn't overcome the fundamental problem. 17 days wasn't enough time to develop meaningful responses to technology that operated beyond human understanding. The best they could do was implement existing capabilities more quickly and hope they would prove adequate for whatever was coming. Emergency broadcast systems were tested and updated with protocols for managing public reaction to confirmed extraterrestrial contact. Psychological counseling resources were expanded in major population centers. Religious leaders received briefings about providing guidance for existential questions that humanity was about to confront much sooner than expected. The compressed timeline also forced uncomfortable decisions about public disclosure. Original plans had called for gradual preparation of populations over a period of months, allowing time for careful management of social and psychological reactions to confirmed alien contact. 17 days didn't allow for gradual anything. Governments faced the choice between maintaining secrecy until the last possible moment or beginning immediate public preparation for an encounter that most of humanity remained unaware of. Social media monitoring detected increasing speculation and conspiracy theories as amateur astronomers shared observations and images that official sources couldn't adequately explain. The truth was becoming harder to suppress as the object grew brighter and more easily observable with backyard telescopes. October 12th, 2:47 p.m. UTC. Mark that date and time because it will either represent humanity's first confirmed contact with extraterrestrial intelligence or the last normal day in our species' history. The precision of the new arrival time suggests operational planning rather than casual exploration. Objects don't accidentally accelerate to achieve specific arrival timing with accuracy measured in minutes. This represents mission execution according to a schedule that serves purposes we can't understand. But what kind of mission requires such precise timing? Analysis of the October 12th date reveals several factors that might explain the choice. Solar activity will be at minimum levels, reducing electromagnetic interference that might affect sensitive operations. Planetary positions will be optimal for gravitational assists if 3I/ATLAS plans to continue elsewhere in the solar system. Earth's rotation will position major population centers for optimal observation during the approach. Or maybe the timing is about something we haven't considered. October 12th falls during harvest season in the Northern Hemisphere, when agricultural activity is at peak levels. It's also the middle of the academic year, when schools and universities are fully operational. Peak activity periods when human civilization is most visible and analyzable from space. The 2:47 p.m. timing is equally specific. Mid-afternoon in UTC means early morning on the US West Coast, late afternoon in Europe, evening in Asia, and night in Australia. Global timing that ensures the entire planet will be experiencing different phases of daily activity during the encounter. Perfect timing for a comprehensive assessment of human civilization across all time zones and activity cycles. But there's another interpretation that's even more unsettling. October 12th could represent a deadline rather than an arrival date. Maybe 3I/ATLAS had been conducting extended reconnaissance with a specific mission completion requirement, and something about humanity's response to their presence convinced them to accelerate the timeline. Military strategists war-gamed scenarios involving ultimatum timing. Had humanity crossed some threshold of technological development or defensive preparation that required accelerated intervention? Were they implementing contingency plans triggered by human activities that represented unacceptable risks or opportunities? The precision suggests they're not coming to explore or study. Exploration allows for flexible timing based on optimal conditions and opportunities. The rigid adherence to specific arrival timing suggests operational requirements, mission parameters that must be achieved according to schedule regardless of local conditions. Research institutions redirected all available resources toward understanding what might happen during the October 12th encounter. Scientific equipment was repositioned for optimal observation. Communication systems were prepared for potential contact protocols, but mostly they prepared to document whatever was about to occur, because the accelerated timeline suggested that 3I/ATLAS wasn't coming to begin a relationship with humanity. They were coming to complete a mission that had specific timing requirements and objectives that didn't depend on human readiness or consent. The 17 days between now and October 12th began feeling less like preparation time and more like a countdown to judgment, a final period for humanity to demonstrate whatever qualities or capabilities 3I/ATLAS was evaluating before implementing whatever decisions they'd already made about our species' future. Every day brings us closer to 2:47 p.m. on October 12th. Every day, the object grows brighter and more visible to amateur astronomers around the world. Every day, the reality of confirmed extraterrestrial presence becomes harder to deny or suppress. In 2.5 weeks, humanity will discover whether we've been selected for contact, study, judgment, or something else entirely. The answer depends on minds that operate on scales we're only beginning to comprehend, using technology that treats interstellar travel as routine transportation. 16 days. That's what remains between now and the most significant date in human history. 2 weeks and 2 days until 3I/ATLAS reaches Earth's orbital vicinity and implements whatever plan required such precise timing and dramatic acceleration to achieve. Every day that passes brings new observations that deepen the mystery rather than solving it. The object continues broadcasting electromagnetic signatures that suggest internal activity far beyond simple propulsion and navigation. Systems are activating, power levels are increasing, and energy patterns indicate preparation for operations that dwarf anything we've seen during the months-long approach. Deep space monitoring stations detect daily course corrections that maintain perfect trajectory toward the October 12th rendezvous. But these aren't the rough approximations typical of natural orbital mechanics. They're surgical adjustments that demonstrate computational precision beyond human capabilities. It's counting down, one tracking specialist observed, watching the latest navigation data. Every maneuver is calculated to achieve exact positioning at the precise moment of arrival. This isn't approximation, it's choreography. Ground-based telescopes report that 3I/ATLAS is becoming visible to amateur astronomers using moderately powerful equipment. Social media fills with images and speculation as backyard observers document the approaching object. Official denials and explanations about routine asteroid monitoring become increasingly difficult to maintain as the evidence becomes undeniable. Government facilities worldwide operate under emergency protocols that treat October 12th as a confirmed crisis date. But crisis preparation is complicated by the fundamental uncertainty about what kind of crisis they're preparing for. First contact, reconnaissance, judgment, invasion. All scenarios require different responses, and there's no reliable intelligence about which scenario is most likely. International cooperation continues at unprecedented levels, but cooperation itself creates new problems. Sharing information and resources reveals the stark limitations of human capabilities when facing technology that operates beyond known physics. Every nation's best efforts combined still amount to defensive and communication capabilities that might prove irrelevant against opponents who cross interstellar distances routinely. Space-based assets are repositioned for optimal observation of the October 12th encounter, but positioning telescopes and satellites also reveals how little humanity can actually do to influence whatever happens. We're preparing to watch and document rather than participate or control. The psychological preparation proves almost as challenging as the technological limitations. Populations remain largely unaware of the approaching encounter, but those who do know struggle with the implications of confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence operating in Earth's immediate vicinity. We've spent centuries wondering if we were alone in the universe, one sociologist noted. Now we know we're not alone, and we're about to discover whether that's good news or the most dangerous development in human history. Religious leaders report increased requests for guidance about humanity's place in a cosmic order that suddenly includes technologically superior intelligence. Philosophers grapple with questions about consciousness, purpose, and meaning when human achievement may represent merely one example of intelligence in a universe that contains minds far beyond our comprehension. Amateur radio operators worldwide prepare for potential communication attempts on October 12th, hoping that first contact might involve protocols and frequencies accessible to civilian equipment. SETI researchers update listening programs and response procedures for scenarios they've spent decades imagining but never expected to implement. But perhaps most significantly, individual humans begin grappling with personal preparations for a day that could change everything about life on Earth. Some approach October 12th with excitement and curiosity about expanding human knowledge and cosmic perspective. Others prepare for potential disruption of technological civilization and social order. The reality is that nobody knows what to prepare for. October 12th could mark the beginning of a new era of cosmic citizenship for humanity, or it could represent the end of human independence in a universe that contains intelligence willing and able to impose its will on lesser species. Medical facilities prepare for potential psychological casualties as populations struggle to process confirmed contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Emergency services plan for potential disruption of satellite communications, GPS systems, and electronic infrastructure. Financial markets implement backup systems that don't rely on space-based technology, but mostly humanity prepares by continuing to live normal lives while trying not to think too much about the fact that in 16 days, everything could change forever. The countdown continues. Every morning brings us one day closer to 2:47 p.m. on October 12th. Every night, more people notice the growing brightness of 3I/ATLAS in their backyard telescopes and wonder what it means for their future. In 2.5 weeks, we'll discover whether the acceleration was about urgency to make contact or impatience to complete a mission that views humanity as either an opportunity or an obstacle to be resolved according to timeline requirements we can't understand. Watch the skies. Because on October 12th at 2:47 p.m., the sky will no longer belong exclusively to Earth. It will be shared with intelligence that chose to announce its arrival with precision that promises intentional contact rather than accidental encounter. 16 days until everything changes, or until we discover that from their perspective, everything already changed long ago, and October 12th simply represents the day they chose to let us know about it.